Brit European, for those of you that don't know us, move pretty much everything that's high, it's heavy, it's long, it's wide. Everything from a Porsche to a JCB, vans and trucks that you all use, agricultural tractors and combine harvesters. We're quite often the ones with the escorts causing the delays on the motorway, so I do apologise. The business is 100 years old, or 100 years young next month. So I look very good on that, but I have had 3 predecessors as CEO, but I'm only the 4th, and I think that continuity has allowed us to do things like the project that I'm going to talk to you today about. We, about 3 years ago, had the opportunity to look at a new operating site. So I'm not going to talk about trucks and trailers, because like a lot of you, I think you're frustrated, you want to move forward, but the practicalities of the technology, the cost of the technology just doesn't allow us to do it. So I said to my team, what can we actually do now to actually move us forward? And I'm going to try and share some of that with you. But before we get going, I just want to gauge where everybody is in terms of their journey. So I've got a question. So for your own site infrastructure, have you considered or installed any of the following? So rainwater harvesting, solar power, wind power. So 3 answers: yes, you've considered it, yes, you've installed it, or no, you've not got there yet. So let's have the vote. Okay, so half of you already started the journey, which is great news. The other half, perhaps I can give you a few pointers on where you might like to start. So when we started our project, I gave my team 3 objectives. First one was I wanted to build a site that was carbon neutral to minimise the impact on the environment. I wanted to have an operation that was completely off-grid, and because our customers regularly change what they want us to do, where they want us to do it, then we needed complete flexibility on that site so we could do what we want and reconfigure it at the drop of a hat. So I'm just going to let the video play in the background while I'm talking. We started with what is in effect a great big slab of concrete, the worst nightmare when you're trying to be carbon neutral. So they gave me the plans for this site, and the engineers stood there and presented it proudly. We're going to put this big thick slab of reinforced concrete, we're going to dig 700 of the ground out, we're going to take it away and dump it, and we're going to bring all the quarried material back in and fill the hole and then put the concrete on the top. So I stood there and asked them a really stupid question, really, and they were very polite because they didn't tell me I was an idiot, but I know they were thinking it. I said, do we need the concrete that thick, and do we need a foundation? And they all looked at one another and shuffled in their seats and politely said they'd go away and think about it. And about 2 weeks later, they came back and said, we found a technology where we can stabilise the existing ground. We don't have to do any digging. We just bring in a bit of cement, we mix it with the existing ground, roll it, let it go hard. Jobs are good, and we've taken 1/3 out of the concrete because we've redesigned the slab. Good start. Got half a chance of offsetting that then. We then looked at the buildings on the site. It's no surprise, given our experience in modular buildings, that that's the route we went. So the building you can see in the video is actually 20 modules, or over 2 floors. There's no big foundations underneath. It sits on top of the slab. And the workshop building that we're flying over the top is repurposed shipping containers, because again, we didn't want to dig pits into the ground because we wanted to be able to manoeuvre it around. With the modular building, the biggest carbon footprint is actually the steel frame. So they're a big box with a steel frame. And I said to them, well, that's not what I want. I don't want that carbon footprint. So they said, oh, well, we need a steel frame. We can't take it out. Anyway, some bright spark came up with the idea is, well, we can repurpose one. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Where are you going to get that from? And they said, oh, we've got one that Network Rail have been using. It's been sat under a flyover for 2 years. We think it's okay. So we stripped off a few panels, checked all the frame, perfect. Re-insulated it, put new windows in to get to an A grade rating, and the building that you see today is the end result. If you walked in it, you wouldn't know it was a modular building, it just looks like any other office. But at the drop of a hat, I can stick it on a truck and move it somewhere else if we've got a different purpose for the site. The site itself, by default, we are going to drop things on the ground, and we're right next to a big water source, which is where all our rainwater goes. So we wanted to make sure that nothing ended up in the environment. So all the water in the site is trapped, it can't escape. In terms of rainwater, it goes through filter tanks, and we have what is called a water break. Really exciting stuff. Basically means it controls the amount that we put to the brook that is nearby. If there's a big flood warning from the Environment Agency, or there's rainfall predicted that they don't like, we can actually shut that break, put everything into our attenuation pond, and it sits there seeping back into the ground until we're allowed to release it again. All very simple stuff, but all stepping stones in the process. The next thing we wanted to do was look at the use of our utilities. So electric was top of the list. So rather than rush out and spec out the solar panels and the batteries and everything else, the first thing we did, we actually looked at all the electrical items in the building. Right down to we don't have kettles, we use instant water boilers. We've obviously got all the LED lighting, but every computer item, all the heating, the air source heat pumps, everything was selected based on its energy use. And the end result was we've got a building that at rest uses 4 kilowatts. And when we've got 55 people in it, it still only uses 15 kilowatts of power. So that's a good starting point if you then want to use your own power generation, because you need a lot less of it. So we put the solar panels on the roof, and I'd say to you today that solar panels have reached that sort of point where they are very efficient and they're well worth investing in. The trick is always the battery systems. Can you balance the batteries so that you take all your excess energy, store it in the batteries, because there's no point throwing it back in the grid because you get nothing for it anyway. So that overnight those batteries run your business, and then the next day you're ready to go again. Just with the solar, we are off-grid May to October on its own, just by balancing that out and getting the power demand of the building right down. The next thing we did was looked at the water in the building. I don't know whether you'd be surprised to know that 85% of the water we use is flushing toilets and washing vehicles. So we collect everything that's on the roof, put it in a great big tank, and put that back through a separate system in the building. I did try to get everybody to drink rainwater, but they weren't really having any of that. But I did try. And the advice there is, you'll sit there, you'll calculate your water usage, and you'll come up with a tank size. I'd recommend double it, and then double it again. Digging a big hole is relatively cheap, and it's well worth it. Not that we've had any problems with it this winter. We've had plenty of water. The next one was, we've got a lot of electric vehicles in the fleet in terms of cars and what have you. So we wanted to be off-grid with that. So we've put in a system. So as the video goes up, right at the top end of the site, there's a couple of little boxes, and we run our cars and the electric charging on moo-poo. So cow slurry. So we collect the gas from cow slurry, and we use that to charge our vehicles. It's a world's first, it's a portable system, it's a modular system, so as the fleet grows and as our demand grows, we can add to that. The farms themselves, they put the slurry into a covered pit, they use the energy initially to run the dairies and the farm, they put some into the tractors to run the tractors, and then we take the excess gas from them. So all relatively straightforward, all quite simple, something that everybody could do. The third element, which we're just waiting to install, is wind. And when we did the original specking of the project, they showed me a nice picture of a big wind turbine, and you'll all be picturing them now, big white mast with three big sails going round. And I said, no. One, the planners don't like it, especially if you're in an urban area, which we are in Middlewich, Cheshire. They're quite noisy. They need a big area and a footprint as a safety zone. And the worst of all for me is you need a great big concrete foundation to stop them falling over. So we searched high and low and got to the point where we'd almost given up. And then we've come up with a solution with a partner that has no moving parts on the outside. So it's a wind turbine that's basically a big 4-metre tube in terms of diameter, 15 metres high. It's 3D printed on site out of recycled plastic, and we can have it graduated and coloured to suit the environment. It has no concrete foundation, it's simply a steel ground screw that we put into the ground and bolt it to the top. And the vertical turbine that sits in the top of the tower that you can't see is a NASA patent, and they've somehow, and they won't tell me, found a way of stopping the resistance on the reverse side as the turbine turns, so they are as efficient as a normal turbine that you would envisage. The other big benefit is you can put them all close together. So instead of having to spread them out, you can actually put them within a metre of one another, and they like that disrupted air. So that's due in imminently. And then when we've got the 3 power sources, so the solar, the MUPU and the wind, we've got some interesting switchgear and some simple software that simply says what is the most environmentally efficient and cost-effective power available to me right now. So I can tell you now, it will go to the solar first, then it will go to the wind as direct power, then it will go to the battery systems and say, is there any power stored in the 3 systems that sit with each power source? Then it will go to gas, and then if we're really, 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 really unlucky, we'll have to go and get something from the grid. So the detail, and we've just chased the rabbit down and down and down the hole, and now it's about connecting it all together so that we get the most effective solution for us on a day-to-day basis. The MUPU then offsets the concrete, and we've estimated that in about 5 years we've completely offset the concrete pad that we've put in. The final bit was the planting. When we designed the site, they came up with a nice planting scheme and presented it to me. Nice pretty flowers and trees and blossom and this, that and the other. And I said, oh, that's all very nice, but what was here before? And they said, well, you know what was here before? It was a brownfield site with lots of scrubby vegetation. I said, no. What was here before the site was industrialised? Because the site was industrialised in the 1850s and was part of the chemical industry within the Middlewich area. And the guys from the council and the environmental experts all sat there and scratched their heads and said, oh, nobody's ever asked us that question before. So to be fair, they went away, they did a lot of work and came back with a new planting scheme, and the planting scheme that went in the autumn reflects everything that they believe was in the environment and the site before it was industrialised. So again, just following that detail to its end. So another question before I sort of reveal the answer. Would you be prepared to pay a premium to implement more renewable energy and energy generation as part of your site infrastructure? So it's a simple yes and no for this one. Vote now. Okay. So the question is how much of a premium, isn't it? Oh. So in terms of the site build, we actually believe it cost us a 5% premium over a conventional build. But when you take into account that when we will be virtually energy free or free energy in terms of our use of the site in less than 5 years when all the investments have been depreciated, then that should come down even further. And my team and I think that's a good price to pay. And when I sit in front of my kids at the tea table, one who's head of Eco Club, then I can at least defend what we do. So in terms of simple messages for you guys, there's lots there that everybody could do. Some of it is a bit unusual, and some of it is typical Brit European, a little bit anal in terms of the detail. But there's simple stuff that you can do. Some of it is not overly expensive, but you can make a start. And for us, this isn't a competitive advantage. This isn't something we're running around to our customers saying, look, aren't we clever? Look at us. Instead, we see this as we all need to do some or all of this, otherwise we're not going to succeed together. So the offer from myself and my team today is, if any of you want to start this journey, you don't know where to start, you don't know who to talk to, you want to come and see the practical reality of it, there is an open invitation. So thank you for listening, and hopefully you can get on your way soon. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's amazing. What a journey that you went on. How long did it take to build?
So from actually putting a spade in the ground?
Yeah.
Yes.
From the beginning.
So from the beginning, the project was about 3 years in its planning. And then we put a spade in the ground in August, and we moved in at the end of February.
Oh, wow.
So the technology and the ground stabilisation means you can really speed up the process. And I think we saved something like 2,500 truckloads of material in and out.
I feel like during the journey you always got to a solution. Was there ever a point in the journey where there didn't seem like a solution and you thought?
I think the team felt like that, and they got a bit fed up with me asking silly questions.
Brilliant. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. I mean, you did mention that I think someone would like you to know, would like to ask you, obviously you've shared your expertise. If they want to do the same, your door is open. How do they get in touch with you and start that conversation?
Go on the website, send me an email, speak to Microlise. They'll give you my contact details, and come and have a look and talk to my team, and we'll try and help you.
Brilliant, brilliant. And lastly, how long will it take for the site to break even on the money saved from being off-grid?
To break even, we're talking about 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So hopefully the technology then gives you at least another 5 years before you have to replace it, probably another 10. So we're working on about a 15-year lifespan of all the technology. And then at that point, you might review it all, because National Grid might have got its act together. We might actually have completely green power, and then you might question whether you do some or all of those bits and pieces. But for the time being, we've got to do it because they're not there.
Well, again, a really insightful discussion there, and thank you for sharing that journey, and hopefully some members of the audience will follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, very, very pleased to see them.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Round of applause for Graham.